Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Autosport Show 2011, the traditional start to the motorsport season. We're very honoured to have with us on the Silverstone Classic stand a world-renowned designer. His cars have raced in Formula One, Can-Am, sports cars, virtually pretty much every kind of...
Le Mans,
of course. Pretty much every... You must have designed pretty much every kind of car that... Well, I was going to say, even the occasional rally car.
Formula 3, Formula 2 in the early days. But obviously the Le Mans cars, Formula 1 and India, the big ones, are the big races, the ones that everybody remembers, captured. But there's a lot of production-type race cars in the early days, Lolas and all those sort of things.
This is an iconic car, really, isn't it? This is the car that you designed for Jaguar, won Le Mans in 1988.
That's good, yes.
It must bring back some fabulous memories when you look at that car, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, the Jaguar, the TWR Jaguar period, for me, was my favourite time, because it was about a 6-7 year period. And we started off, obviously, right from square one with just a great big Jaguar engine, and we've got to sort of try and catch up and produce a car that could beat Porsche, who are very well established, having won Le Mans time and time again. So it's quite a big challenge. By the time we got to the XJR 9, which you see here, which won in '88, of course there'd been a lot of 3 years of hard slog. The previous year, the XJR 8 actually was super successful. That won 8 races in 1987, but it didn't win Le Mans. We finished 5th. We're always having gearbox trouble, which is always a problem at Le Mans. Even in '88, we still had gearbox trouble. But it was safety in numbers. So we had 5 cars entered in '88 and 3 finished. So and we won. But we had to win that year. The pressure was big time, and that was the car that won, which is a more refined version of the XJR 8, which I say was very successful in itself. The 9 actually won fewer races, but it won the big one.
And that does make a difference, doesn't it? Le Mans is, from a sports car perspective, it's the race to have on your CV, isn't it?
Well, with Le Mans, the beauty about Le Mans, you win Le Mans, and you've got a whole year to bask in the glory. Whereas if you win a Formula 1 race, you've got 2 weeks.
As you mentioned, Porsche really had been dominating at Le Mans prior to Jaguar taking the victory. What do you think were the design elements of this car that enabled it to overhaul that Porsche dominance?
Well, first of all, we had sufficient power. We could get around 750 horsepower out of this Jaguar engine. It was the secret with the Jaguar was to just keep boring it bigger and bigger. The bigger the capacity, and the limit in those days was 8 litres. We could go up to 8 litres, but the most we ever got out of the Jaguar engine was 7.4 litres, because that was the limit of the physical limit of the block and what have you. So as we went bigger and bigger, we obviously got more power. That was much more a better route than trying to tune and refine the engine to get more power. It was just make it bigger capacity. And so that we had enough horsepower, 750 horsepower, and of course, being a non-turbo engine, we had that horsepower all the time, where the turbos tended to fluctuate. They qualifying, they'd have more power than they would in the race. And on top of that, it was then aero. The aero package in its day, that was like the ultimate, if you like, on the days, the most efficient in terms of you've got to be able to do 240 miles an hour on the straight, because we had no chicanes in Le Mans in those days, just a whacking great long straight. We used to hold full throttle for 63 seconds. I mean, that's pretty scary, really. Actually, max power for 63 seconds without lifting. And the drivers used to say it was white knuckle stuff. You hang on and just wait. And they do about 240 miles an hour, which was a little quicker than the Porsche could go, so we could actually overtake Porsche on the straight, and that's what happened in '88. And I remember Lammers, when he took the lead, overtaking Stuck, as he went down the straight, he did actually wave to him, because after the race, Stuck came up to me and he said, you know, that cheeky Lammers, he waved to me as he passed me, which I thought must have been a fabulous moment for Lammers. And I remember watching on television and thought, that's it, all those those hours and hours and hours spent in the damn wind tunnel, refining, getting, you know, the odd little pound here, pound there of drag reduction to get it down the straight, paid off. And you could see as it overtook it, that was it. So for me, I'd won the race as soon as he overtook Porsche on the straight. But you had to get round the corners as well, of course. It wasn't just the straight.
Well, it's going to have to do the same again later this year, because this car is going to be in action at the Silverstone Classic. Is it going to be the car to beat in the Group C race there, do you think?
Well, the trouble with all these classic cars, if they were all in original spec, no problem. But you get a lot of these not so prominent cars of their day suddenly go a lot quicker nowadays because they've had modifications made and what have you. So, but ignoring that, it should do very well indeed. I mean, theoretically they should be, if they've got the right driver or Law or somebody driving it, they'll be on the podium.
Group C is making a return to the Silverstone Classic this year after an absence last year. It will be quite some spectacle, won't it, seeing a huge collection of these cars all together racing around Silverstone Circuit?
Well, I always thought that Group C was a fabulous formula. It was very exciting. It caught the imagination of everyone. You got all the big manufacturers there. They were big, noisy and quick. And they vaguely look like a road car. They do have 2 seats, whereas the modern Le Mans cars are single-seaters, really. And so it caught the imagination. They became very popular, as you know. And I think it was a threat to Formula 1 in some ways, because it detracted a little bit. And I don't think Bernie and all his mates like that, because you remember towards the end of Group C, they changed it to 3.5 litre to make it same as Formula 1, hoping there'd be some sort of crossover of engine technology and whatever, but that didn't happen. But really all they did was to dilute the Group C, and eventually it faded out, which is a great pity. If they'd have kept it in the sort of, just refine the regulations a little bit as they were in 88, 90, the Jaguar Mercedes era, I think it have kept going for years. But they didn't want to do that, obviously. You
mentioned Formula 1. I mean, obviously that's another category that you were involved in with designing cars for BRM, for Shadow, and of course one of the founder member of the Arrows team. That must have been quite an adventure, wasn't it?
Which Arrows?
Yes.
Well, you could call it an adventure. I mean, it's done a lot of hard work and slog and a kick in the teeth at the end. But yes, obviously, looking back, it's in hindsight. Of course, you try to remember the good bits and nice bits. But it was quite a slog. We always seemed to be. It was always an uphill battle. Seemed to be, because in Formula 1 then, I suppose, as it is now, really. Arrows would be a small team, underdog team, if you like, when it started, and you've always got restrictions in the form of a smaller budget, or you can't get the top drivers, and so on and so on. So that it's very, very difficult. And as you know, in Formula 1, you only have to flick your eyelids and you're off the grid. So you've got to be right there. I mean, we were quite close on occasions, but we invariably let down through to either reliability or a lack of development or budget to pay for the development, that sort of thing. And unfortunately, that's Formula 1. It's still like that now.
Sounds like your heart was more in the sports cars than the Formula 1 then.
Oh no. What happened? I did all the grassroots formulas, Formula 2s and 3s and small sports cars and what have you in the Lola days, and Lolas we did Formula 1 and Indy, of course, but we were supplying people. We were the manufacturer. We just supplied to customers. But after, when I went to BRM, the attraction, of course, was doing Formula 1 full time, and BRM was very exciting because it was Britain's Ferrari, and they made the engine and gearbox the whole car, which is quite a novelty, and I enjoyed that. That was a great period. The only thing was very tragic in those days, because the cars were, by modern standards, were potentially dangerous, because they didn't have the safety features. Every year there were drivers being killed, Formula 1 drivers. I mean, it's a regular thing to lose a couple of drivers each year, and so Formula 1 would learn at their expense. So the next year the regulation would be changed, so we'd have to have rubber fuel tanks and this, that, then we'd have safety structures and so on and so on, till eventually you end up with like the modern Formula 1 cars, which are very, very safe actually. it's no longer a dangerous sport. You stand more chance of hurting yourself riding a horse than you will driving a Formula 1 car. But in my day, it was dangerous, but you were aware of it. That was the business, that was the nature of it, and I suppose to some extent that was the attraction. But after I started Shadow with Jackie Oliver and Don Nichols in Northampton. That's how I ended up. I'm still in Northampton 35 years later. But that was another team starting from scratch, which was good, interesting, but I liked it. We did sports cars as well, like Can-Am sports cars. We won a Can-Am championships in '74, and we had some good Formula 1 cars, but we invariably lacked reliability, and you'd be leading a race and something would fall off, or the engine would blow up, or the driver would crash. We did, because we tend to employ younger drivers who were less experienced, and so they'd got to prove their point, which usually meant crashing now and again, and you just accepted it.
You're still very much involved in the industry, and particularly in the classic racing scene. How significant do you think classic racing is in terms of the overall context of the motorsport industry here in the UK?
Well, as everyone knows, in UK, any historic racing is super popular. I think the reason it's super popular is because you've got a massive variety of cars, all shapes and sizes, and they're very accessible. You can go along to a race meeting like the Silverstone Classic, good with that, and you can actually go up and touch the car, talk to the driver, have a photograph next to them if you want. They're totally accessible, and then you can watch the racing. Some of the racing is very, very good because they drive them very hard. They're not driving, cruising around. Front runners are driving as hard as the cars will go, so it makes it a great spectacle, I think, and I can't see how it'll get just stronger and stronger, really. The only problem is, of course, there's only a limited number of cars available. And we keep getting all these cars that appear from the back of Beyond. And you think, well, they're real ones. Where did they come from? And you suddenly find there's twice as many Jaguars that were ever manufactured and things like that. But
and you do some scrutineering at historic events as well, do you? Is that just an excuse to kind of have a little bit of a poke around other people's racing cars?
The last 3 years I've been doing the FIA Historic Formula 1 series. I'm the technical delegate. That means you're sort of like a policeman, really. And the idea is that you make sure that they don't start putting a Williams wing on the back of an Arrows car or something like that. And so they've got to be period and look the part. And generally speaking, they are. There's always a few differences. But of course, cars that are 30 years old, that sort of age, there's very little original about them, because if it was, you'd throw it away because it'd just fall off. So all the parts, many parts like wishbone, suspension parts, are just remanufactured to the old drawings or old designs, and so they look the same, and I'm quite happy with that myself, because no one wants a 30-year-old wishbone on their car, and you'd be terrified it would break. So they look the part, and they have a few chassis panels that are original, and obviously all the body panels have long gone and they've got new ones on, but they look the same, and they're driven very, very hard, and the racing is very good.
And you'll be coming along to the Silverstone Classic later in the year. What are you looking forward to seeing most there?
I've been a local, being in Northampton, obviously. I usually go along to the Classic at least once or twice over the weekend, and for me, it's a fabulous event. It's very big, so that it's very tricky to actually get to see all the various shows and stands and cars that you want. You just have a wander around and hope you see what you want. But each year there's usually a car. Like last year there was a Lister, the 2-litre Lister Bristol. I think it was last year. Just appeared. It just been completed, and it was a light green, very light pale green car. And I remember Archie Scott Brown driving it way back when I was a lad at Mallory Park, and so I had great admiration for this car. Really, it caught my imagination. It's the noise and the visual appearance, and there it was. And I talked to the new owner, and he just spent a vast amount of money rebuilding it. And it looks stunning. I mean, I would have bought it there and then if it was available and I had the money. Not that I would have had the money, of course, but because he took massive money nowadays. But it would look fantastic, and to me that made the weekend. I thought, that's it. I can still remember it, and I hope he'll be there this year.
We look forward to seeing you there, and thanks for talking to us.
Great.